Gerald Feierstein is Distinguished Senior Fellow for Diplomatic Engagement at the Middle East Institute, and he joins us on Asia First. Ambassador, thank you very much for talking to us. First of all, I want to start by asking you, because you've spent a considerable amount of time in that part of the region as ambassador. Can you very quickly describe to us the diplomacy, amid the threats of retribution, the fears, and so forth? What exactly is taking place? Who's talking to who now? And what exactly are they saying?
Well, it's a very good question, and despite the rhetoric that we've heard, despite what President Biden said, I suspect that there is behind the scenes some messaging going back and forth between Washington and Tehran, trying to limit the escalation, limit the damage. Neither the U.S. nor the Iranians have demonstrated any particular interest in wanting to see an expansion of the conflict. President Biden has been very clear since last October that he wants to keep the situation confined originally to Gaza and now to southern Lebanon. And the U.S. does not want to be dragged into a war. So the question is whether or not the U.S. can convince the two parties, the Iranians and the Israelis, to stand down as they did in April after a similar kind of Iranian attack. But the question really is whether the Iranians intended for it to be a significant blow, or was this simply symbolic, something they had to do to demonstrate their concern over Iranian Israeli actions.
Ambassador, so I want to pick up on that particular point. Do you think Israel will be restrained in its response, given that it probably feels under present circumstances that it may have the upper hand?
Well, again, you're absolutely right. And this is the biggest question, and that is the unknown here, which is, what does Benjamin Netanyahu actually want to do? What is his end game? Is he trying to create a rationale to attack Iran directly, and perhaps even to drag the United States into a war with Iran? Or is he simply maneuvering to improve his domestic standing through these kinds of very aggressive moves that he's made in Lebanon and now with the Iranians? And this is the unknown. Unfortunately, up until now, despite U.S. efforts to mediate between Israel and Hamas and between Israel and Hezbollah, the Israelis so far have not been interested in finding diplomatic solutions. Their intention up until now has been to escalate, and whether that turns around now is a big question.
And Ambassador, Israel has already warned today's attack will have consequences, with the U.S. saying it will coordinate response with Israel. What are they likely to look like?
Well, again, if we go back and look at the exchange between Iran and Israel in April, there was an Israeli response to that initial Iranian attack, but they, like the Iranians, took steps to lower the threshold, to lower the extent of their retaliation, in order to say that they responded, but in a de-escalatory way, not in an escalatory way. And that, I suspect, is what the United States will be counseling now.
So, Ambassador, do you think that an Israeli strike against Iran's nuclear enrichment facilities is off the table at this point?
Well, the theory has been for a long time that Israel on its own cannot successfully strike Iranian nuclear facilities. They're buried deep underground. The Israelis don't have the kinds of weapons that would allow them to penetrate deep enough to really damage Iranian facilities. And so Israel's ability to actually hit those kinds of extremely sensitive targets inside of Iran would be dependent on the U.S. cooperating either directly or by providing Israel with the kind of weapons that we've refused to provide in the past.
And Ambassador, there are worries among pundits that the embattled Iran, after the Israeli strikes and Hamas and Hezbollah, may be prompted to fall back on its, main sort of form of deterrence, which is nuclear weapons program. Do you share their concern?
Well, I think that, of course, the question about where the Iranians are in their nuclear weapons program remains a subject of debate. I think that the view right now is that in terms of gathering the fissile material that they would need to fabricate a nuclear device is there. But nevertheless, what they don't have is a means of delivering it. In other words, that they have not done the work that needs to be done in order to develop a missile with the miniaturization and the other things that they would need to do in order to be able to actually deliver a nuclear weapon over a target. And that, I think most estimates are that they're still probably a year or even 2 years away from having that capability.
And Ambassador, very quickly, is any of this going to change the IDF's operations in Lebanon and also Gaza?
Probably not. I think that if you look at where the Israelis are right now, what they're trying to do is to clear Hezbollah out of southern Lebanon north to the Litani River, which is kind of the dividing line between North and South Lebanon, with the idea being that if Hezbollah were not able to operate south of the Litani, between the Litani and the Israeli border, they wouldn't have the capability to really strike directly at Israeli targets. And so that was, of course, the UN Security Council Resolution 1701 following the 2006 war that has not been implemented until now. It looks like the Israelis are trying to implement it on the ground by their military operations.
Ambassador, we thank you. Appreciate you talking to us on Asia First this morning. Gerald Feierstein is Distinguished Senior Fellow for Diplomatic Engagement at the Middle East Institute.